Welcome to another episode of Money You Should Ask. I'm your host, Bob Wheeler, and in this episode, we're going to explore, question, examine, converse, dig deep, expose, laugh, and cry about the money beliefs, money blocks, and life challenges of our next guest. Turn up the volume, listen, learn, and laugh.
Hey, I'm Bob Wheeler. Welcome to week 2 of March Money Mindset. We want to stay conscious and intentional in our financial decision-making throughout the month of March and beyond. To help record your money journal and financial decision-making, we are giving away 2 free journals each day this week. Go to themoneynerve.com/Fresh Start 2021 to enter to win your free journal today. Come back next week for week 3 of March Money Mindset for more giveaways.
Our next guest is Sandra Beck. I am so excited to have Sandra here. She is an author, coach, speaker, radio host, entrepreneur, and philanthropist. Philanthropist. Oh, it's those big words that if there are more than 2 syllables, they get me every time. Who is as successful as she is busy. The single mother of 2 has created a virtual empire of successful companies entirely staffed, managed, and implemented by using a host of virtual assistants and online resources. Whether she's coaching a company owner to $1 million commission goal, training a stay-at-home mom to perform SEO on websites, or speaking to a group of women who are in recovery, her message is about empowerment. What is possible and how to create the circumstances of your choosing. Sandra teaches her clients how to maximize their lives by using the power of the internet coupled with the drive of their passions to create the lifestyle of their dreams. She is the president and author of Motherhood Incorporated, author of Blogphoria, and is a powerful voice in the social media arena as a popular internet brand strategist. She also hosts 2 radio shows, Military Mom Talk Radio and Motherhood Talk Radio. Sandra, we have a book that has all of your credentials. How are you doing?
I know. Every time I listen to that intro, I think, oh my gosh, I'm so tired.
Well, one of the, you talk about how to maximize and how to figure out how to create the circumstance of your choosing. Like a lot of people are like, no, it happened to me, right? Something happened to me, but
Sure.
You're helping people say, wait a minute, let's find the silver lining, or how does that work?
Absolutely. I'll just give you a quick background of where I figured this out. I had 2 little babies, a 3-month-old and a 2.5-year-old in Southern California, in Los Angeles. I had a big fat overhead financially. And one day my ex-husband got up, walked out and said, I'm done. I don't want to be married. I don't want to be part of this. And all of the financial responsibility as well as the childcare fell on me. And so I had a good week where I felt sorry for myself, cried every day. And then I thought to myself, there is no other choice. And I guess I could have gone home, to my parents in New York, as a 40-something, not a good look. But I had to figure something out quickly. And what I realized is when something gets thrown at you in life, whatever it is, it could be cancer, it could be, a car accident or a foreclosure, something like that. You have to move quickly from what I call A to B to C. So you look at the problem and you have to move immediately to the solution and then immediately to action plans. What you can't do is stay stuck and go what I call the, oh, why me? Why did this happen? Why did he leave me? Why? You know what, Bob, who cares about why? I have mouths to feed. I've got a mortgage to pay. So why was kind of shoved to every Thursday at 5 p.m. where I would meet with my therapist. And so I would just put all those whys, all those feelings and everything in a box and unpack it Thursdays at 5, pack it back up Thursdays at 6 when my session was over. And I got immediately to the problem solving and then action plans. And I just want to share with you one really great, funny story for anybody who has little kids. I was up with one of my kids at night with an earache, and we were watching, TV in the middle of the night, cartoon characters. This Lego movie comes on and Ninjago, and this little Lego figurine comes out, and he bows to the TV screen and he says, "What can you do today to get you to where you want to be?" And I was in my bed with my kids going, oh my God, message for me. I got up, I wrote it down on a Post-it, which I still have up on my wall today. And I just focused on what I could do today. I didn't think about the future. I didn't think about college. I didn't think about diapers. I didn't think about what I had to pay at the end of the week. I focused on only what I could do today. And that was moving from A to B to C.
Yeah, that's awesome. And do you think, I'm going to take my glasses off. Do you think that if you hadn't had two small kids, you wouldn't have had as much of an immediacy to act?
Oh, absolutely. Those were like two little guns to my head.
Yeah.
They were a no fail, no excuses. You better get to work. If it was just me, Bob, I'd probably still be drinking on the beach, like just hanging out going, my marriage is over, 10, 12 years later,
Right.
Because you hear people do that. They're like, oh, I was in the Grand Canyon shortly after my marriage ended, and I took a walk with my two kids in a double stroller, and I decided to walk the Grand Canyon rim just because I thought it would give me perspective of like what's really big here.
Right.
And I pulled the cart over, the stroller over, and I was sitting on this bench, and this bus of divorcees poured out. And two ladies sat on the bench next to me, and they're like, that son of a gun, I can't believe. And she's like, oh, he cheated on me, blah, blah, blah. So of course I'm a big eavesdropper, and I leaned over and said, can I ask you how long you've been divorced? Well, one of them had been divorced 15 years, Bob.
Wow.
And I vowed myself at the Grand Canyon, sitting on the edge, not jumping in, just enjoying the view of, I'm not going to be that person. I'm not going to be 15 years later. Now, 15 years later, I'm talking about divorce, but in a positive, uplifting, how to move on way. But I promised myself at that point, I would not be that person.
Yeah. And one of the things that you said at the beginning, I think is so important for people to hear is you didn't worry about the whys. And I think a lot of times we go to therapy and spend years trying to figure out that thing that happened when we were 6. It's good to know about the thing that happened at 6, but we also need to live in the present. How am I living today? And what can I do in my current relationships? And how can I have a current relationship with my money instead of, oh, I'm locked in my past?
Right. And why changes. As you get more information, as you go through life, whys change. So when I look at and I go back, oh, well, why did my ex-husband leave me? And I could do all these things. Wasn't a good wife, 2 kids, spent too much. You could have all these jumbled of things. And believe me, I had a laundry list of them.
Yeah.
But then years later, I found out that he had known this person, prior. And they got back together. So that kind of nullified all my whys. So, new information comes in and it's like, oh, well, if this person, was his friend and they were building this whole relationship, what chance did I have? So all of those whys that I figured out were just blown out of the water. And that's why I think whys are only valid to either make you feel better, mitigate your responsibility, or to kind of give you some peace of mind to move on. But the fact of the matter is, whys change when more new information comes in. You get these ahas. And it's like now you've spent like 5 years on all these ahas that may or may not be true. They're just stories we tell ourselves. Unless you ask the person and they will be truthful to you, you're never going to know the why.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And when you, you had your parents that could have jumped in. Do you have a big family? Do you have siblings? Were you an only child?
No, I have a big family, which, comes with its pros and cons. And yes,
for sure.
Because everybody had an idea. And, I'm the youngest girl in the family. And so like one of my brothers flew out, like, oh my God, we need to save Sam. And I appreciate all these things, but I was a grown ass woman. I was 40 years old. I wasn't like, 16 alone and pregnant. And I also have a master's degree. So, but when you're the younger in a big family, you're always going to be the child. But I did have a lot of help with my family over the years. And, it was a very simple thing where I had to humble myself and learn to ask for help. And So one of the things that I did was like when the new school year would come up, I would say to my brothers and sisters, okay, when they would say, is there anything you need? I would say, yes, Zach and Max need sneakers. They need gym clothes. They need these things. I was very specific in telling people how to help me and what I needed. And that was very humbling for me, Bob. I was used to paying my own way in the world. And when my dad came in, my one son's like Dracula mouth. So his teeth were 7,000 to get braces and everything fixed. And my dad came in and he said, I will help with that. And he paid half. And so, I wasn't, handout Jane, but I was also, being reasonable with myself going, okay, this is what I can provide. These things I can't provide if my family can help me. And, it was kind of spread out through a bunch of different brothers and sisters and my dad. And then one of the things I did too, Bob, was my mom got diagnosed with cancer and breast cancer, and she ultimately died after a 5-year battle. And they were big helps to me during that time with childcare where they could. And, when my mom was well enough. But then after my mom passed away, I made the decision, despite everybody telling me this was a disastrous idea, to move my 80-year-old dad into the house. So not only am I a single mom, 2 kids, 3 dogs, 1 old man, I called it like the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 factor. And 5 bills I couldn't pay, 4 dogs, you can do the math. But the long and short of it is that he helped me with some of the childcare. And in return, I cooked and cleaned for him. And now he's 87 and my kids are in their teens. So we've been on this like 8 to 80 merry ride for about 10 years. And, it's been interesting and it's been fascinating to have somebody who was raised in the Depression era live in the house with my 2 lovable, spoiled kids. I mean, it's truly amazing what 80 years difference can do in especially financial sensibilities.
Yeah, absolutely. And what did your dad teach you about money? And does he talk to your kids about money? Like, how does that go generationally?
Absolutely. Well, I can tell you, a good example of with the pandemic last year, when the pandemic was in China and we were getting reports on the news of what was happening and what was coming here. Now, this means no disrespect, but we started calling my dad Bunker Bob because he was like, Stan, you have to take me to Sam's Club. There's going to be, this is going to be terrible. And, Bob, I weighed the decision of going, okay, do I stock up on canned goods and sodas and paper products and all these things to alleviate my dad's anxiety when I really didn't believe it would be a big deal? So that was a big discussion. Finally, I thought to myself, you know what? I have the room in the garage. We'll use this stuff anyway. What does it hurt? We go to, Sam's Club and Costco and dump $750. It's like the most I've ever spent. Because my dad's like, you're going to need toilet paper. You're going to need paper towels. We're going to get, cleaning things. And, because he had lived through World War II. Yeah. So he saw things and he kept telling me, it feels the same. It feels the same. And in my head, I'm like, okay, Bunker Bob, we'll just,
exactly.
But we did. We stocked up everything. And he even had us stock up like cans of like, Tylenol and Advil and things. He's like, what if somebody gets sick, and we can't get out? And, but I did. And, my dad was not at all having an issue with spending that much money to prepare. Now, if we wanted to go out and get a hamburger and it was $30, oh my God, I can't believe it's $30.
Right.
But in this prep thing, the kind of the prepper mentality, he was all for stocking up. And we did, Bob. I could have housed like 15 families for all the things that we bought.
You took all the toilet paper.
It was all in my garage.
Uh-oh, we're coming. But
this was like literally a month or 2 before. And I actually I took some old bookcases out of the garage and retrofitted them so that I had a little pantry. And every time I'd walk out there, I'm like, this is the dumbest thing. Like, this is ridiculous, but it makes my dad happy. so what? But then boom, lockdown, all of a sudden, we're sitting pretty, and my dad was the hero. So, it was a very interesting ride to go from someone who's so frugal. I can't tell you how many glass jars we have in our house. We don't throw anything out. We reuse, we reduce, we recycle, so to go and spend $750 on all this stuff was amazing to me, but I'm glad I did.
Yeah. That's awesome. And do you talk with your children about money, or did you talk to them about the stocking up? Do you have conversations with them?
I have had conversations with my kids about money since they were old enough to something. And we did these things called mommy bucks. And, I'm a computer person, so I printed out my own money with me on it. And
there you go.
It was a lot of fun. And, it had my face on it. And, my one kid was on the $5 bill and the older one was on the $10 bill, which no parent should do that. Because then the $10 worth of the $5, and then the kids fight. They should just.
Who has more value?
Yeah, exactly. You like him better. You made him the $10 bill. But we had this kind of fake money thing going on when they were little, and they could earn money and I had a little chart where if they brushed their teeth, if they made their bed, if they put their clothes in the hamper, all the things I wanted to teach them, they would earn a mommy buck. And a mommy buck, it wasn't dollar for dollar, but they would say, well, I want to go get a hamburger. Can we get a Happy Meal or something like that? I would say, okay, that's 10 mommy bucks. And they would have to go and get their 10 mommy bucks. And it was a great single mom tool because it kept them from asking for too much.
Yeah.
And I didn't have to have that awful conversation no, we can't afford these things. As a parent, that's really hard.
Yeah.
But if you set the standard for your kids really little, going, okay, everything's an exchange. You do these things, I do this thing. If you're treating me poorly, I'm not going to treat you poorly, but I'm going to withhold certain things. And the other thing I did that I thought worked particularly well, and my kids are 14 and 17 now, and I've been a single mom for 16 years. So I think I'm doing, some things right, is that their cell phone was contingent upon their GPA.
Okay.
If you kept an A average. Now, one of my kids had a hard time in geometry, and I have a little caveat that, you have to put the benchmark where your kids can matriculate. I knew my kids could get A's, but one of them got a B in geometry. And I said, well, why did you get a B? And he's like, Mom, I have a really hard time with it. So that was, I was given kind of a grace period for that if you did your best. But if you're not getting your homework done, if you're not getting things in, boom, that cell phone's gone. Because who gets a $750 cell phone in 6th grade? Kids do today.
Right. They do. And one of the things that I'm going to ask this for the listeners, because if there are single moms out there or single parents or even two-parent households, that's a lot of time to educate your children. That's a lot of time to set up the structure. It's just easier to feed them some food and turn on the TV.
No, it isn't. It might be short-term. That's short-term thinking.
Yeah.
When I had my chore list, there were a lot of my friends who came over and they jokingly called me the mean mom. They're like, what do you mean your 4-year-old has laundry? You know what? But they can sort socks. They can, if they can drop it on the floor, they can drop it in a bin. It's not being mean. It's about being, my older one is going to Berkeley. So, something happened the right way with the structure. Yeah. And I did lean a lot on the Marine Corps, which was my background in training. My dad was Navy. So we always had chores, and I wasn't raised with a lot of money. So we always had chores. We always had things to do. But when you give your children structure, you also give them the tools to create self-reliance and confidence. And you can't make a confident kid. We all talk about trophies for 9th place. How there's that wave of everybody who shows up gets a trophy.
Yeah,
no.
That's California.
Yes, that's right. Exactly. Here's your ribbon for 9th grade, or 9th place. Good job, kid. No. Trophies for the first three. Maybe you want to give two more ribbons. But you know what? If you suck, if you didn't show up and you didn't go to practice, you should not get a trophy. And, these things did not endear me to my local community sometimes, Bob. But the fact is, if you want to grow a confident kid who's confident about choices, you've got to let them make choices. And there has to be consequences to those choices. That also applies to money.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned the military background. You do a lot of work for the military.
I do. I do.
Yeah, and you work to empower women. Can you say a little bit more about that? I mean, obviously, you're a woman and you want to empower, and you've been a single mom. But is there something like that you're passionate about, or what was the impetus to say, this is where I want to serve?
Well, it started out because I couldn't pass the medical requirement for the military because of my vision. So that to me was kind of that stinks, because that was one of my plans. And I had gone to college on a scholarship to Northwestern. And what happened was, when I couldn't serve in the capacity that I wanted, one of the XOs at the university said to me, Sand, you're well-spoken, you're nice-looking, you're athletic. Maybe you'd like to run our fun runs. Maybe you'd like to help, in this capacity. And then they ended up sending me to a protocol school. I got to do a lot of neat things and work with the military, running their Toys for Tots and doing things outside of the community, but help the military community at large. And in my work there, I realized, especially now, women comprise 20% of our military forces. And many women go into the military because they're single mom. They get an education. They get, there's three squares. They get money to send back home to their sisters or parents who are raising their children, while they're serving. And what I realized was that these women were a lot like me, only I was gifted the power of this world-class education. Yeah. So that really struck me that something needed to be done. And with the first Gulf War and people coming back, friends of mine's husbands who were struggling, they, were hitting their wives. They choked one of my friends in her sleep, nothing on purpose, but these things happened. And when they went to get help, to be fair, my friends weren't big readers. They didn't go to school. Right. So I formed Military Mom Talk Radio so that we could give medical, social, financial, psychological information to people who weren't readers. Because if they went to get help, it was a pamphlet. It was, read this article. Here's a printout. That's not going to work. So when I realized that the internet was becoming faster, digital was becoming cheaper, a podcast 16 years ago, people didn't even know what that was. They thought I was like sitting in my dad's basement in my underwear.
Right. And for many it is.
Yeah, right. Pants on. Where did they go?
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And do you think with the military women, like, there's a lot of obstacles there. Maybe they're coming in as a single mom, but what are the obstacles that you see that are more challenging for women, maybe more so than for men? Because I'm sure that gender, plays a role in finances and all those things. Just a hunch.
Sure, absolutely. I mean, gender does play a role, especially, I look at my own experience, and it's reflected through a lot of the conversations I've had with our military women. We were always taught that money was the man's job. It was impolite for women to talk about money. And so I always had this kind of aversion to money, and I would push it away. People would say, "Oh, Stan, you took care of my kids. Let me give you $20 for gas. Let me give you some money for food, since you watched my kid for the afternoon." And the polite person in me would say, "Oh, no, that's okay." Meanwhile, I can't pay my electric bill. Right. And then, I kind of had to come to Jesus with myself going, why are you pushing money away? Yeah. Because it was considered impolite to accept money. And I'm like, well, but wait a minute, I'm burning a tank of gas, driving 10 kids to and from soccer because their moms work, and I'm working from home. So why wouldn't I get compensated? And, if you don't have those conversations with yourself and kind of reframe your thinking about your relationship with money, you're going to get in trouble fast.
Yeah, and do you think that's more of a socialization to be like, oh, let me be the nice person? I know in the Midwest that's pretty. You want to be polite. I grew up in the South. You want to be polite instead of realistic.
Right. It's considered rude, and I can tell you, when I had my aha moment of like, I need to accept this money, was I had a minivan, and I could pick up a lot of kids from school and transport them to the after school program. So a couple of my friends said, hey, would you mind picking up my kids? Whatever, I'll give you $10 a week. Oh, this is great, blah, blah, blah. So I go to pick up this group of kids, including my own, and I'm going to transport them from the school to the aftercare program. And I realized when I pull into the school, my car is on zero, not just zero miles to empty zero.
Right.
And I'm like, crap, the place is 9 miles away. The closest, a gas station is 1 mile away, but I had no credit card. I had no cash. Like, you're talking stone cold broke. Paid my insurance on the car, but, we're eating oatmeal, eggs, and bananas.
Yeah.
So I'm driving like 2 miles an hour. And I roll into the gas station on fumes, and I'm like, kids, look everywhere. And so we came up with like $4 worth of change, because they're like, I found a quarter, between the seats. And we did. We got enough gas. And then as I'm pumping the $4 worth of gas, one of the little boys goes, hey, Miss Sandra, here's $13. He hands me like $13. And he's like, yeah, my mom gave me $20 for lunch today.
Wow.
And here's the rest of it. So I took the $13, and I put it in my tank. And when I drove the kids, dropped them off, I had to pick up the same group of kids and then bring them to their homes after. I said to the kid's mom, I'm like, I'm so grateful, your son had some extra lunch money. I was honest. I said, I'm completely broke. I didn't have money for gas. She opens up her wallet, Bob, hands me $200 bills. And she goes, oh, I'm so sorry. She goes, I should have been paying you for all your helping. And I'm like, she just whipped out 200 spots. And I realized, like, here I'm so weird about accepting a little bit of money. That was nothing to her. It was more important for her kid to be safe. And so I really went home and thought about, how was I thinking about money? Because my desire to not be rude, to be polite, to be nice, to be liked was putting me in the poorhouse.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's such a fear about being honest about where we are financially sometimes.
Yeah.
Because we want to present well, because most people, there's a lot of people out there presenting like, look, I've got it together. And, internally they're like, oh my God, I hope the check clears. I hope the credit card goes through. And there's so much shame, and we keep it to ourselves because we think we're the only ones.
Well, and I started talking about it on the air because it was very freeing. I didn't have a back window for like 6 months, and it was great. California's in a drought. Oh, well, I didn't have any snow or rain.
Yeah.
And I had broken the window on my garage trying to get to soccer on time, backed out, hit the back hatch window on my van, shattered it all over. We cleaned it all up, but I drove it without a back window for a long time. And when I would pick up that same group of kids, if they dropped a French fry on the floor, we'd stop at McDonald's on the way through to the daycare place. I'd tell them, throw it out the back window. Even now, my kids are 17 years old, that group. And they're like, we remember Miss Beck's minivan throwing French fries out the back window. But at some point, you have to own it. You have to own where you are. Yeah. And when you do, and when you talk about it, about being broke, going through a foreclosure, driving around without a back window, when I say these things and people laugh, and then they tell me their broke stories. And then I realized, unless you were raised with a rich family that bailed you out at every turn, more often than not, most everybody's had some point in their life where they're like, crap, do I eat or do I, pay this?
Yeah. I think, yes, most of us have been there, and it's not something we run around going, look at my debt, look at my failure.
You're right.
Oh my gosh, you'll never believe how much I claimed in bankruptcy, right? It's like we we want to sort of push it under the rug and say, look, it's been really good. And it's not.
Yeah. I had a friend who, she had this beautiful BMW. Her husband has this great, one of those big dually pickup trucks. They have this beautiful house. And, when I was at my lowest point, I said to her, I'm like, I am such a failure. I can't even keep a roof over my health. She says to me, she goes, oh my God, we've had 2 bankruptcies. I'm like, what?
Right.
What? How, and that's the thing is you don't know because people do present well. And I'm like, wait a minute, you've had 2 bankruptcies. I haven't even had a foreclosure or a bankruptcy. And I'm crying about how broke I am.
Right. We only get snapshots of everybody else's life.
Yeah.
We don't get the whole album.
Right.
And we don't share our whole album.
No, I started to on the radio just because I found it to be very freeing. Then it also takes the sting out of it. Like when I look at like how bad I felt with no back window, and now I tell the French fry story and everybody laughs. Like, and it's over. These things pass. They don't last forever.
They're temporary. Sometimes it feels forever, but it's temporary. You also are passionate about being a philanthropist. See, I said it right this time. Why is that important?
Because it's the one thing that I feel that people can't take away from you. I went through a really ugly, high conflict divorce with someone who had a lot of money on his family, could throw it at me anytime, drag me through the courts for 6 years with lots of false accusations. I had to continually defend myself and ultimately coughed up the kids and gave them to me full time anyway. But that whole period made me, I know people, like Eleanor Roosevelt, I think, said, nobody can make you feel bad about yourself except you. I'm like, that's not true.
You haven't met my friends.
right. You meet my ex-husband and, you meet them. But you're only human. And when stuff happens, you're human and you're going to feel bad. And the things that I held on to during that time, and I did go through a foreclosure, and I felt really bad about a lot of things, but what I never could take away from me was all the good that I did in the community for Toys for Tots, for the pajama program, for World of Children, for Children Uniting Nations. And I'll tell you a funny story, Bob. I was pulled in during that time. I was pulled into court with my ex's girlfriend at the time, claiming I handed a bag of laundry at her in a way that was threatening. I'm going to kill her with a pair of socks.
Socks are scary.
Yes, socks are scary. But the long and short of it was when I went to go to court to defend myself for this restraining order, which was, just junk. It was intended to humiliate me. I had over 100 letters sent to the court, and there was a bunch of them in Spanish. And I have them. I have copies of them that were defending me. And they were saying things like, Miss Sandra bought me soccer equipment when I didn't have any. We got a backpack from Miss Beck, groups of kids. And this same group showed up at one of my Toys for Tots events, and that same year, the person that was helping me run the front door, she's like, "Oh my gosh, Miss Sandra," she goes, "there's a group of gang members here. They're in their lowrider. They pull up, and everybody was kind of like." Uh-oh. And then they get out, and the tattoos everywhere. And they're like, "Hey, Miss Sandra, we got toys for you." And they did. They brought a bunch of toys because they received toys through me and my programs. And so when I look at the work that I've done, particularly with children, disadvantaged children, children in need, homeless and foster care kids, that you can never lose. That will never, like when I look at how bad my divorce was and all those things that I went through and, the domestic violence classes I had to go to and learn about things, the one thing you couldn't take away from me, Bob, I will take those letters to my grave.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I made a difference.
Yeah.
So when you ask me, why do you do philanthropy? Yeah, it's a tax deduction. Yeah, you feel good, but you will always feel good. You'll never feel bad about buying pajamas for the pajama program or dropping some toys into Toys for Tots. Yep. You get to make a difference to a kid you'll never meet. That you can never lose.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's important to say to the listeners here, you can be a philanthropist by giving $5 or by giving your time. You don't have to set up the Rockefeller Foundation. You can actually, it's a mindset, and I think it's paying it forward and for me, it's, about gratitude, of being able to say, hey, I'm in this position. Maybe I don't have much, but I can offer this.
Right. And, you prime the pump for prosperity. Prosperity is a wheel. And when I did a lot of the things that I was doing, miraculous things would happen to me. One of the families that I helped, I sponsored a family at Christmas. I didn't even think about it. 6 years later, the guy comes and he's like, hey, I've got a bunch of artificial grass that's left over from a job. I'm going to junk it. I want to put it out in your backyard because my backyard was all dirt. I couldn't keep up with everything. He comes in and he puts this down for me. Wow. And he's like, I'll never forget, when I was incarcerated, you brought Christmas to my kids, know. So these things, you look back at your life and go, these things were terrible, but the silver lining stuff is phenomenal. And that's the thing you hold on to no matter how low you feel. You go, okay, 55,000 kids received toys from me in my lifetime. Yeah. No one can take that away from me.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Now, I love that. Well, we are getting to Fast Five, so I'm going to change track real quick here. And these are just top of the mind, whatever comes. What motivates you to work so hard?
Kids, whoever they are. They don't have to be mine, anybody else. The more money I make, the more people I can help.
Awesome. What would you sing at karaoke night?
The Canadian National Anthem in French. That's my crowd pleasing.
All right. I don't even think I could do it with the words. If you could only eat one meal for the rest of your life, the same thing, what would it be?
Oh my God. Pepperoni pizza with mushroom and onion.
What was your last impulse buy?
Oh, I'm holding it. A mermaid coffee cup, because everyone should have a little fun in their life.
Absolutely. Would you rather win the lottery or work at the perfect job?
Win the lottery. I can make that money into more money. Like, hello.
Absolutely. Well, we're at our M&M moment, our sweet spot, money and motivation. Can you give the listeners a practical financial tip or a piece of wealth wisdom? Something that, you've had all these different things going on in your life, and here you are.
Absolutely. When you look at spending something, put it in the bank, because when you have money in the bank, you have the power to say no. When I was broke, I had to take a bunch of really crappy jobs, work for a bunch of obnoxious people with an MBA, typing letters for a guy that treated me just like the biggest jerk in the world. Yeah. And when you have money in the bank, it gives you the power to say no. You can say no to something and enjoy your kids. You can say yes to other things. So money in the bank gives you the power to say no.
Yeah. And how do you... just to piggyback on that, when things are tough and you're looking at buying something that maybe you would like, but it's not absolutely necessary, how do you tell yourself, you know what, not today, I'm going to save that for later. I'm going to keep the money in the bank.
I just think of that guy that treated me so badly and go, is anything worse going back to work for a jerk?
Yeah, absolutely.
That kind of kills it right in the spot.
Yeah. Well,
like
money in the bank.
If I wanted another kid, I would just go to Walmart on a Saturday morning, watch everybody scream and cry. Then I come home and go, okay, I'm satisfied with two.
Good. Two is good.
Two's good.
Two is good. Well, that's great. One of the things that I really like what you're saying and talking about is this taking yourself out of victimhood. Yeah. Like we all have circumstances that are beyond our control.
Yep.
And so it may not be our fault personally, but we can choose to say, I'm going to get up, I'm going to move forward, I'm going to push through this in spite of everything, and I'm going to figure out what can I do today to keep moving me forward, and instead of, I'm going to stay in my story. And obviously kids are a motivator there for you, not just yours, but kids. But also this thing about empowerment and then paying that forward, helping other people, seeing that other people are struggling instead of saying, oh, not my problem. And one of the things that you talked about earlier that I think is so important, and I always like to reaffirm this, is community is so important.
Yeah.
We need our community. And I think I say this a lot, but in the U.S., especially, we have so much money that we can isolate and disconnect from people and not actually deal with being in community with other people.
Sure. I mean, it's easy. And I did it for a while. And when you find yourself isolating, you just go down this rabbit hole and it's really hard to get out. When you go and you commune with people, whether it's at your church, whether it's at a soccer game, you just walk around, say hello to everybody, start listening to your stories that you're saying, but listen to the stories of other people and you'll realize, you know what? Everybody's got something.
Everybody's got something. Where can people find you online?
Oh, they can go to Beck Multimedia, or they can just Google Sandra Beck. They can listen to Military Mom Talk Radio or Motherhood Talk Radio. Any of those, you can go to toginet.com.
All right. And you know what? You need to be, I'm going to be looking forward to like your next 10 books.
Thank you.
We'll look forward to that. Well, I want to say to our listeners, please don't forget to share the love. You can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Search for Money You Should Ask, all one word. You can subscribe to this podcast on your favorite podcast player. Visit podchaser.com and search for Money You Should Ask, or click on the link below. If you prefer to watch our episodes, head over to YouTube and subscribe to our channel. For more tips, tools, or to learn more about your money nerve, visit themoneynerve.com. Sandra, it's been so much fun. I really enjoyed it. I thank you for coming on today.
Thank you. I had a good time.